This is the Black Powder Podcast.
We are live.
I am one of your hosts, Marcus Matthews, the only real libertarian. Today I am joined by my brother in liberty, the noble one from the great state of North Kakalaki, Eric Parker. Eric, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing good. I just want to point out I'm rocking the Florida hat, Florida shirt, because Florida, my home state where I'm from, is in the Final Four. Not a huge basketball fan, but when you're in the state of North Carolina, everyone's a huge basketball fan. I want to
Yes.
point out the irony that, like, my brother Marcus here is rocking a North Carolina Tar Heels hat. They were in the March Madness playoffs, but they're not in the Final Four like my Florida Gators. So let's go. Anyways, this is not a basketball podcast. I just wanted to, let's.
You just wanted to scrape a little skin off your elbows there with the beef.
That's right.
Yeah, but I could dig it. This actually is the Black Powder Podcast, the only real libertarian podcast that has ever existed in the history of libertarianism. And today, I mean, how could you not talk about what's going on in America today without starting off our topics tonight with tariffs and the impact that it's going to have on America? Now, for me, before we actually delve into that, I want to make one point. People like to rag on libertarians. The libertarian policy on economics is true free market enterprise. And that's the government completely out of your way in you trying to be a capitalist. And ultimately, that's what we all should be trying to do, is become capitalists. Whether you're working for a company or you're working for yourself, capitalism is the mechanism to bring people out of poverty and destitution. So if we're not going to have capitalist principles in the somewhat most capitalist country in the world, what do we truly have? And why aren't libertarians effective with that messaging, Eric?
I think the problem is there just aren't enough of us, like big L libertarians in the party. I do think there are some people with, a message and an audience, and some people were able to break through, push the goalposts outside of libertarian circles in the last election cycle. The sad part, a lot of those people did endorse the guy who is doing the tariffs. And of course they said, well, this is a terrible idea. And then I didn't support that. But, those same people are like, well, I'm not supporting bombing Yemen either, or I'm not supporting funding Israel either, or whatever their complaint is, that other people tried warning you. Like, hey, if you vote or, proudly, openly endorse Trump, here's what you're going to get. And a lot of people said, oh, he's different this time, or no new wars. Like, well, we're on the brink of war with Iran, probably the closest we've ever been since we invaded Iraq, probably. So, I just wanted to point out, though, and we can get into it, but there are some people in the Republican Party pushing back against the tariffs. People like Thomas Massey and Rand Paul. I even think like Senator Mike Lee, some people that do have an audience and a voice. So at least we have that, and they're standing on principle over party.
That's what's sad about this whole situation. It's few and far in between, because our politicians are on a year-round re-election campaign cycle. And the one thing they fear is being primaried. But I would say to them who are afraid to be primaried, those those individuals that have been primaried more recently have actually won most of their elections. And right now, America is looking for principled administration of our republic. And Thomas Massey, 100% is one of those individuals that is being principled in his role as a representative of the people. Rand Paul also is stepping up to the plate on this issue and representing the people that elected him to go to Washington, D.C. and represent the people of his state. It just it's just shocking to me as a free-minded, or more so a liberty-minded individual, that Americans are so comfortable with people who will not truly represent them. Because I oftentimes I say this: everybody has a representative in their state capital and Washington D.C., except the American people. Every industry has that. Every enterprise has that. Every country has that. But the American people, if you really wanted to voice your opinion to your congressperson, they were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you wrote them a letter, you'll get a letter back saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. This is why you should vote for me, because the other guy's is stupid. And here's a link to where you could donate to make sure that I represent you in Washington, D.C. or your local state capital. And it'll be an auto signature on the bottom. The person that you voted for will never see that letter whatsoever. It will go to a junior staffer who's tasked with handling the spam that the American people give to their government elected officials, because that's what you are to them. Every American is spam mail when you write letters to your congressman, senator, state representative, state senator, county supervisor, whoever it is. They don't care. If you're not a big donor contributor, they're not going to listen to you. And for America just to ignore third parties at this point in our tenure as a young nation, still one of the youngest nations on earth, it just like that's one reason I'm for getting rid of the Department of Education, because it's not producing critical thinking individuals. It's producing good workers, as the original intent was. At any rate, Eric.
What? So
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What's happening today? What happened today in America?
I don't know. I mean, I guess they implemented a bunch of tariffs yesterday or something like that. And libertarians know tariffs are just a tax on the consumer, the people in America. It's not hurting China. It's not hurting other countries. And tariffs are never beneficial in the long run because they distort markets, raise prices, and ultimately hurt the very consumers and businesses they claim to protect. So that's the problem. Is like, you in a free market have the decision to purchase goods and services, or essentially you're trading your work and your time and your capital for something you deem you either need or you want. And then whenever the government steps in and says that's going to cost, that Samsung washing machine you're going to purchase is now going to cost 34% more higher, or whatever I think Samsung's South Korea, whatever
Yes.
the tariff is on South Korea. That's what I don't get, is like, and a lot of people are like, well, we're using this strategically. Like, what are you getting from charging South Korea, one of our biggest allies,
If not
payment?
our best
Yeah.
ally, yeah.
Why even? And they make like Hyundai. Like, Hyundai vehicles are one of the more affordable of vehicles in America. This is hurting the lower class, the middle class first. You know what I mean? And is Kia made in South Korea also? I'm not sure. I think it
Kia,
is. Is
they
that
do have
Japan? That might be
factory.
Japan.
I'm no Kia is affiliated with Hyundai. How do you
Okay.
guys say Hyundai? Is that how you guys say
Hyundai.
it? We say Hyundai out here in California. I followed what you were saying. I just need to grasp upon
Yeah.
your dialect. But
Kia
yeah,
is
yeah,
headquartered in Seoul, South Korea. So, like, I
yeah.
don't know if you know, it's like, and I hope I'm saying Kia right. I don't know how I can mess that up,
It's
but you know,
Kaya.
like,
No, I'm just kidding.
but like, I have heard it's Hyundai, and I said Hyundai, right? Is that how I
Yeah,
said
something
it?
like that. But yeah,
Hyundai.
I got where you're
That
going, bro.
that's the redneck. First off,
Oh,
I've never owned one. I don't know how to say it. I've never been in a Hyundai
Hyundai.
dealership. But if you drive around like Toyota Japan, I don't know what tariffs do we influence. We should probably pull this list up.
Yo,
Can you
they
find the
did
list of
tariffs on
tariffs?
Japan too. It's
Yeah,
everybody.
everyone. It so the last time this happened was in like the 80s or 90s. Ironically, a lot of people were quoting of Ronald Reagan, and I pointed out like he did tariffs too. You know what I mean? Like he talked a
Yeah.
big game about free markets. He did tariffs too. And a lot of people were saying like, I guess Rand Paul's argument was like actually the law they're trying to use specifically was sanctions. It wasn't tariffs. The word tariffs was never in the law that's being used. That the you could have executive power to
Oh,
increase taxes on the American people because that's what tariffs are. It was
yeah.
actually sanctions on other countries, and he's using these. You know what I mean? So it's like I think what Rand Paul's alluding to is there's probably going to be a lawsuit, and we'll see if this goes. You know, Supreme Court shuts down these tariffs, and he's voting against this emergency act that we had against Canada. Like everything's going to get more expensive. And I think I used a real world example where I work. I did this last podcast. I want to beat a dead horse, but there's a very expensive piece of specific equipment that already costs $26,000. We have these throughout our plant. They usually don't go bad. We had one go bad, and literally, if we bought it that day, it'd be $26,000. And then, if we bought it the next day, the tariffs against Canada, because this gearbox made in Canada, it would be 25% more, I think, at the time. And everyone's like, why don't you just buy it made in America? It's like, that's fine. As soon as the company starts making it, they don't make it in America right now. So get to work, some random American machinist shop. We need this one specific unique gearbox, and we need it tomorrow because our machine is down today.
See, and that's the thing, because Trump alluded to there's going to be some sacrifices made. What we're coming out of was one of the worst 4 years in economics. Although they'll talk about the stock market, they'll talk about real estate wealth and things of that along that nature under Brandon, but the cost of living went so much under Brandon. That's why Trump simply got elected, because Americans are like forgive me, my fellow Americans, for I'm about to insult you. Americans are like the pendulum of stupidity, swinging back and forth between Democrats and Republicans. Oh, this guy messed up, I'm voting for this guy. Oh, this guy messed up, I'm voting for this guy. And it goes back and forth. Whoever messes up the economy, which they both do on a fairly regular basis, that means the other team needs to be in charge. Then when the other team the other team gets in charge, and then when they mess up, I'm going back to the other team. That's literally 35% of Americans believe that, because American is America. America basically is a 33 country as far as how they vote. You have 33% hard left, 33% hard right, and then there's that 33% in the middle that's just looking at both of these people, these extremes, and saying who is best for my personal interests at the moment. And that's what sucks about being a libertarian, because we're like, those 66% of the people are just always wrong. And that's you're voting opposite of who you think is wrong at the time. That's insanity, voting for the same people over and over again and expecting different results.
Well, the problem is that's like in most, don't get me wrong, I think there are a lot of people in America that were voting for Trump in this election. But I think because of the propaganda, it's also because of the very poor job that Joe Biden did for 4 years.
Terrible. He was
But
terrible.
it's like they have short-term memory loss or whatever 4 years ago is. Like Trump did all the things that Republicans or conservatives say that they don't stand for. You know, he raised taxes, raised tariffs. He got rid of our freedom to associate with the COVID lockdowns. You know what I mean? All that stuff.
He did.
He added $7 to $9 trillion to the national debt, and three of it was like that. Oh, COVID emergency. And that's another thing. Like Rand Paul said this in his speech. Go look it up. His Senate speech was awesome. But he's like, look, you shouldn't be using these emergencies for tyrannical executive orders, essentially. Like, and he says the Constitution says that Congress, the taxes will be voted on Congress. Well, tariffs are taxes. This executive order wasn't voted in Congress, essentially. But like most everyone knows, if you're watching this podcast, that in a free market, you know, unless both parties benefit, there is no exchange usually. There are times when like your hands are tied, you have an emergency, or you feel like your hands are tied. You're never forced to buy a new car whenever your engine blew up in your old one. You could always use Uber, walk to work, whatever. That sort of, you have those choices to make. But most people say, I got the convenience of buying a car and it makes my life a little bit easier. I don't have to ride horseback anymore. You know what I mean? Like the free market provided these luxuries or benefits, if you will. So,
And that's what the free market is supposed to do. I want to talk to my people real quick. When I say my people, I'm talking about people who believe in the Second Amendment, that believe this Glock magazine should not cost more than it should. This ammo should not cost more than it should. This Glock should not cost more than it should, simply because a politician wants to sell you a vision of America that doesn't reflect the reality of modern economics. Because this is a global supply chain at this point. There is no way we are going back to when America, and you know, this is what I'm assuming when they say make America great again. Directly after World War II, when America was the only continent, that industrialized continent, that had the manufacturing base to produce the materials that went to Europe to rebuild Europe, to went to certain parts of selected Asia to rebuild Asia directly after, but primarily it went to Europe. The United States, the reason they won, well, we won World War II, is because nobody could stop our production. Nobody could bomb the factories that were producing what America could produce internally. All the factories in Europe were destroyed, minus the ones in the Far East and Russia. And you can't go back to that now because it is cheaper to produce elsewhere. And what is capitalism? The major cost in capitalism, obviously, is labor. That's why we're seeing. I'm seeing layoffs in the tech industry happening now. One thing I wanted to point out: there's a local grocery chain here in Southern California, over 100 years old. 2-3 weeks ago, they announced the first layoffs that they had in the entirety. This is still a privately owned, rather large grocery store chain here in Southern California. Announced their first layoffs ever in the history of that company.
What's the name of the grocery chain, if you don't mind me asking?
Stater Brothers.
Stater Brothers.
Yes, it was created
How they've been
out of
around for
Southern
100 years?
California.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
Have they ever filed for bankruptcy? Do you know?
no. This has been a company. I'm going to say no because this company has existed the entire time of my youthful recollection, going all the
And
way back.
you're
We
like at least half of 100, so
yeah, I am. And so yeah, they were like 50 years old when I was born, something like that. But my dad would go there every time we had a barbecue because the quality of their meat was so higher than the mega grocery store chains. Like this, Stater Brothers only exists in Southern California, but you'll get the best prices out of all the Krogers and the other because there's not that many grocery store companies left in America. I think there's between 5 and 6. Um I may be
in
wrong, maybe right, but there's not that many.
in Florida area or up to I don't know Mississippi Alabama, you had Southeastern Grocers. They owned Winn Dixie, they own Harvey's, and they didn't always, but they do now. And Bilo, and I don't know if I don't think Piggly Wiggly, but those three. And then they filed bankruptcy. At least when Dixie filed bankruptcy like 2 times in my lifetime. They were always struggling.
Yeah,
And Aldi was actually going to buy up a lot of their like locations, and I think they did sell some. And then Aldi literally just started shutting them down. Like basically, it was a way for them, I think, to competitively like remove their competition in a way. I don't know exactly. So I digress. I'm not into
no.
the
I'm gonna
the.
speak to your point real quick. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
go
I
ahead.
don't think Americans know that the reason why we have certain fruits and vegetables during the winter is because those are imported from South America,
Yeah,
particularly
global
Chile,
market.
Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, because uh, simply weather factors, and those prices are going to go up under these tariffs, and you're going to see that at all, no matter who runs your local grocery market, you're going to see those in your store. But what were you going to say?
Well, nothing. I wanted to ask you. I saw you posted a funny meme this morning on the podcast Facebook page of the dishes hanging off the china cabinet,
Yeah,
waiting for someone to open the door. And it said today's stock market. Now, was that I didn't look at the stock market today because I don't care like I care. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
like what I'm investing in my 401k, I'm investing regardless if it's high or low. You know what I mean?
right.
That's all the investing I do. Anyone here wants to reach out to me if you think that I need to get into other, large stock trading or any
Well,
actual advice, any licensed financial folks, reach out.
I
But
I did take
did
this
you
Series
did
Six
you
test.
look at the
Yeah,
stock market and did it
yeah.
at the end of the day, or really at the beginning? I'm sure it dipped. How to end up at the end of the day? I'm assuming, and you know
I
where you're
passed
at,
the
maybe markets
series.
aren't closed.
If you want to do mutual funds and excuse, so I'm sorry, excuse me, and stuff like that, there was a test I took called the Series 6, I believe it was called, and I passed that. And that was to sell mutual funds and life insurance and things of that nature. But if you're paying attention to the market, if you had the extra money, which I would say 80% of Americans truly do not have that type of capital, it is a great time to buy the dip. It's always a great time to buy the dip, buy the low.
Yeah,
Because, and I
yeah.
will tell you, as a owner of a
That's right
401,
now.
that's right now. But as an owner of a 401k, I would tell you that's always a long term investment, and historically, over the long term, it will appreciate. So it's nothing to panic if your retirement goals are 30 to 40 years away. This is nothing to panic about because it happens every decade or so where you see a major recession and whatnot. Not necessarily a major recession, but every 10 to 15 years, the America experiences a recession. Now,
Yeah.
almost always that's man-made, but this particular one, this potential one that's coming is incredibly stupid because
So
yeah,
keep going. I was just gonna say I got the results here. U.S. markets, world markets. The Dow dipped by like 1,600 points today.
that's huge.
Um, yeah, that's massive. It's like ah, I wasn't paying attention. So the Dow is down 3.98%. The S&P 500 down 4.84. Nasdaq down 5.97, and then a bunch of other ones. Everything's down. Nothing. No, the VIX, whatever that is, went way up, but I feel like that's phony. That I've never even heard of it. VIX Vapor Rub is doing good. I don't know.
Maybe
VIX, but yeah,
maybe fools are
everything
sick. Maybe the
everything's
flu.
down, and maybe someone should have gifted Trump Basic Economics,
Wow.
the
So
book.
I will say to this on the stock market, if you had extra capital to invest, obviously it's a good time. But when we talk about Americans, we talk about kitchen table issues because that's where Americans are truly concerned, and that's why Trump was reelected this time around because it was kitchen table issues. The stock market affects a vast swath of America as far as retirement accounts goes. If you're between 3 and 5 years from retirement, you're shitting bricks right now. If you're currently in retirement, you still have the stock market, your quality of life went down tremendously today. It will eventually go back up, but the only thing is time will tell. And that's where the uncertainty causes the stock market because it's all speculation, which I truly never understood. Al Gore had one good idea as far as economics that I ever heard him say. He said we should ditch the quarterly system because it puts pressure on corporations to perform in 90 days. And we should go to a half year system where you have that full 6 months to develop your business model and expand upon it instead of trying to rush through. I made this much for you in the last 3 months, 4 times a year. Let's just have it. And that's something I've always felt would be because you can have a rocket attack in the Middle East and the speculation on the market for oil and all kinds of different commodities that in this global market, you'll have all of these things and somebody will shoot some rockets at somebody else. And all of a sudden, the price of oil skyrockets, but the supply doesn't do anything but remain the same because they have OPEC has you can pump X amount of barrels of gas, oil a day. That doesn't change, but the speculation that it may be more hazardous to ship that oil out of that region is what causes the price of oil to go up. And these things, they're not real things. That's not real capitalism. If you're talking speculation, but your productivity doesn't change. I'm not a professional economics guy, but I just don't see the correlation between speculation and actuality as far as supply and demand. You know what I mean?
I'm smelling what you're stepping in. So just I'd say breaking news, but 22 hours ago, reason.com posted the Senate just passed Rand Paul's bill to block Trump's tariffs on Canada. Now,
Mm.
I don't know what the vote total is. I think it needs to be 2/3 to be veto proof, or is it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's got to be
Well, it
two
has
thirds.
to. If that was just the Senate, it still has to go to the House.
Yeah, it's got to go back to the House. I think it could
I,
get enough
dies,
support. You
dies,
think it? Yeah. So force the
100%
House
dies
to,
because the
and
House
then
every 2 years, Senate every 6 years. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah. But I was just saying I don't know. Somebody quickly read the Constitution, find the part where it says what is veto proof to pass. I think
Yeah,
it's got to be
it's 2/3 in the Senate, but I don't even think that gets through the House because Mike Johnson is just like slobbing Trump on everything. So he's
well.
not. He might not even introduce it to the floor.
You got some people like Anna Paulina Luna, and we could kind of
Yeah.
switch gears from tariffs, but she's trending because she left I guess the Freedom Caucus, something to do with she wanted to be able to vote by proxy or
Remotely.
remote
Yeah.
because she's the new mom now. I understand the argument. I don't think there should be any excuse for anyone not to be able to vote in person. That's how, like, I got to stand on principle here. Thomas Massey forced everyone to come back to vote during a pandemic. You know what I mean? So, and I thought he was right on that. I don't think you should be able to vote from your phone or your laptop or anything. I think you need to be in there on the House floor and pass your vote because then it's actually a recorded vote. Force people to raise their hand, say aye, or walk up and say aye, whatever. How do you vote? Whatever. We need it as a recorded vote. So, but I only brought her up to say like she's breaking away from Speaker Mike Johnson on this, and I think there's now a massive wedge driven between her and that side of the Republican Party. I'll just leave it at that. I can agree or disagree on whether or
Yeah.
not the
Um.
House should vote on the rule. Is the thing is that's their rule. Let them vote on it, and then Speaker Johnson delayed all votes for the rest of the week because of this,
I
emergency. Once again, you know what I mean?
I have a theory on what you said. So when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, she had a 2 or 3 vote margin uh, for the last few years of her tenure. She got every single Democrat to vote for whatever she wanted to pass. There was
Yep.
no question. There was no Mavericks. There was no rebels. All of them stepped in line and voted along the lines of what Nancy Pelosi wanted. The Republicans have never been that party to have that type of unity in their vote. And so, what I think they were trying to do is make sure the Democrats could never actually utilize that rule because, in essence, it always would tend to benefit Democrats because they could have their person in the hospital or giving birth or whatever, and that if that person is not present, having that person vote goes against what because the Republicans typically, I don't see them having the issues that Democrats have had over the last few decades as far as um, having their majorities vote in their favor. That's what I'm trying to say. Republicans don't have that type of unity uh, as Democrats have had. So that's why I think that vote went the way it did, and why they canceled all the rest of the votes for the rest of the week after that happened, because they're
They
ineffective in that regard.
yeah they felt they didn't have the votes. Uh,
Yeah,
I would also be worried like it's old and geriatric as the Congress is. As soon as you make an exception for new parents, then you're going to make exceptions for really old people.
yeah,
And
you're
then
yeah, that's true.
you'll have a bunch of Congress people voting by proxy from their nursing home while they're on life support. And the establishment's just pushing the button while they're in hospice. Oh, yeah, vote yes, vote no. You know what I mean? So,
I think you just made a great argument for why Congress should be the way it was when most of them were planners. And
Yeah, where you
this
had
doesn't.
to run a farm and like
You
work,
ran
and
your
you only
farm,
had 100 days.
yeah. You during spring and summer. After the harvest, you went to the state capital or the national capital to handle national business, and then wintertime, everybody pretty much hunkered down because it wasn't a time to be about places.
Yeah, because
And
you were
then
on
when
horseback.
spring came, that was planting time. So in essence, Congress should all and every state legislation should be part time. There is no reason on God's green earth where we need people. If we elect a federal government to handle our foreign affairs as well as our internal affairs, and if a crisis comes up to such an extent that we may need to defend the United States and the interests of the United States in a truly logical fashion, you call them back to Washington, D.C. to handle that situation. And, and the representatives of the people will handle that situation. We don't need any time of full time legislation, and the executive branch should be relegated only to international affairs that directly affect the property and the freedom of the people of this republic.
So I think there should be a bill passed where, sorry, excuse me, if you're in Congress, your salary is only the median income of the people in your district. And I think it
Yeah.
should be required for you to live in your district. And that is not a requirement for Congress. But I think it
That's fair.
should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna look up like what I don't even know what district I'm in. I can say congressional district. Here, hold on. You go on a diatribe real quick while I look this up.
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
tell my fellow Americans that this is the only real libertarian podcast. It's non biased. We don't care if you're a liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican. You're all wrong. We're only right. You should listen to us. If you give me the power to rule over you here in the United States, I will do only one thing. I will let you live free or die. And
Yeah.
when I say live free, you could do what you want. But if you hurt anybody else in the process or steal from them, rob from them, kill them, you should be, um, Eric, I'm going to pass it back to you
Yeah,
now.
go ahead. All right. North Carolina congressional. All right, look, hold on. Wait. Median income of NC Congressional District 6. So, median household income, I want I think about 9%. Let's say it's $40,000. Household is 64. The median income in this district is like $40,000.
Wow.
So that's really low.
Yeah.
I think that should be my representative, Addison P. McDowell. It's a dude. He looks kind of goofy. He's a Republican, but he's got like a portion of Winston-Salem, High Point. It runs, southwest through Salisbury, Mooresville, down to Concord, which is just outside of Charlotte. So, yeah, this guy's salary should only be like $40,000 a year. You know what I mean? Hey, that's what your constituents live on. You're representing them. You should really only be working 100 days out of the year, right? You
Yeah.
don't deserve nearly $300,000 or whatever Congress people make on their salary.
No, because 50% of Congress are millionaires.
Exactly.
That's just. I'm a capitalist, but that's knuckin' futz.
Well, that's the thing is like that's a government job. That's not a free market position. Capitalism and the free market didn't create, and honestly, all of these people all right. So other than three of them out of 535 or however, House and Senate, all of them are taking money out of your pocket with for their big government decisions. You know what I mean?
So
So
I will
they're
say that,
making your household income lower because of the way that they vote. That's why their salary should be the same as yours. If they want more money, they will pass laws that make your salary go up.
okay, I will say this. Getting back to the tariffs real quick, I would not mind tariffs as much if I did not have to pay taxes to the city, the state, excuse me, the city, the county,
County
the state, the federal government.
and the
If I didn't
HOA.
have to pay any taxes to those four entities, tariffs are not a bad idea.
Well, all right,
Because
tariffs.
well,
Tariffs
because I can
are a bad
select what I
idea.
want to pay. You know,
Yeah, tariffs
they're
are
always
bad,
pay, but I can
but they're
select what I want to pay for.
yeah. So I think tariffs, if they were, sorry, I got some echo. I think tariffs, if they were done like a fair tax, like you only paid, that's the problem. It's like tariffs aren't, though. It's on everything made somewhere else, right?
Yeah,
That's why tariffs are a bad idea. But I get what you're saying. Like, if we replaced all of the income, let's just go federal. If you got rid of the federal income tax and then you only had tariffs, that would be a different story. The problem is Trump made promises to cut taxes on overtime. I just worked 50 hours of overtime this pay period. You know what I mean?
oh, yeah.
That's a
So
whole
yeah,
freaking paycheck,
week in
right?
a couple of days. Yeah,
Imagine if that imagine if that was tax free. That I would have voted for him if I knew when I cast the vote my taxes went away. But I knew he was full of crap. And then a lot of people are like, well, he's replacing the income tax with tariffs. Right now, we're all paying both. He should have got rid of the income tax at least on overtime, and then also for tips and all the other campaign promises he made. But instead, he told people I'm going to do tariffs, and that's the first thing he does. That's been the last thing he did after he accomplished all the other stuff he told us he would do. So
I would simply be interested in the numbers on how much less the federal government would receive in tax revenue on overtime. That would be the number I would want to see why that actually didn't get brought to the forefront of the CR they just did, or in the framework of the budget that they want to do, where they have to make those tax laws. Just
do you
on
know?
because overtime gets, I have done over, it gets taxed extra hard. I mean, the death value on overtime is criminal. Because and you know that's why I don't even sweat that anymore. Because I used to think I was getting my family necessarily ahead, and I'm not. This is nothing undercutting you because it's still revenue that you're bringing in. But the fact that the government takes so much more of your money when you work harder,
Yeah.
it irks me to no end. But like it fires me up how bullshit that is.
So, and here's you made the point like, well, why wasn't Congress pushing this and making this like something we're gonna fight for in the CR right now? They could have put it in there because the Democrats weren't going to vote for a government shutdown. They could have put it in that CR.
Yeah, they
The
could have.
reason why they don't care is because none of them work hourly overtime positions. They're all attorneys. Their salary is what I'm getting at. I'm not saying they don't work more than 40 hours a week. I'm saying they've never in their life depended on overtime to get rid of their bills. Most of them grew up, well off with
Privilege.
wealthy families. They went to law school somewhere, or entrepreneurs or own businesses or whatever, millionaires. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's why they don't really care. They've never had to
51%.
struggle. I
Yeah, and
mean,
that's why I always say this: Nobody's going to change a system that brought them to power. Why would you do that? Why would you give up what you were successful at and let somebody else that may have a better, because we don't have this anymore. It's no longer about the best ideas. It's all about what's the best profit margin for who I invest in, or because the worst thing government does for me is that it picks winners and losers. And that's how you get rich being in Congress, because you have a chance to vote on the winners and losers with the foreknowledge that you could go in there for $5 a share on a company that you know is about to get some government entitlement program, because that's what an entitlement program. I've been paying into Social Security and Medicare since I was 16 years old. I am not only entitled to that money that they stole from me, and one thing I will agree with Elon on is Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. It's telling you that you're going to put in some money into this and you're going to get a tremendous bonus on your investment. I'm paying almost uh, what I would get a month in Social Security. Well, I'm paying like more than 60% of what I would get a month from Social Security right now. And if I did that in the stock market or a savings bonds or some sort of investment portfolio, I would get 5 to 10% more than what I would get if I give the government my money. And that's why it's a Ponzi scheme. You're not getting your return on investment giving the government your money, and that's why it should be optional. You should be able to go into this system, because the government has historically failed the American people page after page when it comes to what you give versus what you get. I don't know how we got on that.
You know what really grinds my gears? No,
No, go ahead.
no, that was it. I was just saying. Oh man! All right. Well, what else is popping up? Quick, off the top of your
I
head.
just want to reiterate on these tariffs: ammo and gun prices are going to go up. That's the last thing I have to say.
I was so you point out, and I picked up, and I was like, "Man, what gun do I have here? This is the Beretta." So
Yeah,
that I don't know what the tariffs are on Italy, but Beretta's made in Italy. There's probably some tariffs involved. So if you don't already got you a Beretta Nano 9 mil, it's going to go up in price. So let's just
yeah.
say. But
And if you like
now,
Glock or Glock 30s, it's going up in price too. And this is already way too expensive for what it is.
I mean, Glock's an affordable, reliable pistol. It's a great everyday
Yeah,
carry because if you ever have to use it in a self defense situation where you have to protect your life, limb, or property, if you're allowed to protect your property in your state, you're
I'll speak to that in a moment. Go ahead.
well, but you're gonna lose that gun. It's gonna be tied up in evidence. You'll probably never get it back.
Yeah.
So it's pointless to carry $1,000 everyday carry if you ever think it's likely you'll ever have to defend yourself. Right?
So,
Or
yeah,
you disagree?
absolutely
Unless
correct.
you got stacks on deck and you just like burning $1,000. But
Yeah,
I also hope I never got to use it. Right?
that's the
Or
first
have
thing
it
you should
when I
always
do.
think. Never have to use it. But I have heard such horror stories about the so-called tests that law enforcement will run on your equipment after such an event, that when you get it back, it will be completely ineffective in its original intent. So that's how I will say that. I would also say, um,
This is a good chance for you to bring up that thing. Good segue.
The G
Not
the
that thing.
oh, okay, my bad.
No,
But
you can bring it up. Go ahead.
I will let you because I'm feeling the IPAs right now. So go
Me too,
ahead.
brother. Dude, that's what
Yeah,
I've been drinking. Now I'm saying you
bring.
had a screen share you wanted to share.
Oh yeah.
Dang,
So
son.
this is what I wanted to share today, as far as what we as Americans should be looking at, and let's hold on.
There you go. Not tariffs.
Yeah,
There you go. The Bang Saver. Wait. Okay.
yeah.
I want to make sure that wasn't April 1st as the April Fool's joke.
No, this this is what I wanted to bring up today, and this is again from Tactical Shit. Hey yo, Tactical Shit. I'm reaching out to you from my heart. I love what you
Hey,
do. I love what you
when y'all
got.
are fans, do us a favor. Go follow Tactical Shit on Facebook right now. And I think comment below and tag us, the Black Powder Podcast. Be like, hey, yo, I'm huge fans of this podcast. I came across your page because of them. Go do that for us.
Yeah. So I wanted to speak to this for a moment. This is a Bang Saber civilian legal flashbang. Everybody has neighbors they don't like. And I'm not saying that as if you should throw this in their yard when their dog won't start barking and then recover it before the cops get there. And if the cops come over to your house, don't answer the door. And if the detectives come a couple days later, talk to them through the window and tell them, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Get off my porch.
Well, you got a
But
warrant.
yeah,
I
this
plead fifth.
this is a
One,
this
two,
is
three,
the
four.
solution. This is the solution to neighborly problems, barking dogs, a-hole neighbors. Maybe you don't like the people they invite over their house. There's all kinds of solutions that you could come to using the civilian legal flashbang. Just
So,
$1.99. But I would always tell you to recover it before the
yeah.
cops came over after. So you have about 4 to 8 minutes to recover this. So how about yeah.
I want to know what's the time delay on the time you pull the pin, throw the grenade, and it goes off. Is it typical 3 seconds for a grenade?
I
What is
would think
like?
so.
All
I
right,
would think
so
so.
all right. I am not saying this is how you should do it, and this is not advice, but I would attach to a fishing pole, pull the pin, throw it in your neighbor's yard, let it go off, and if it doesn't, maybe you want like a braided steel line for fishing so it
I
doesn't
would
blow.
say a 10 or 15 foot leader.
Yeah, exactly. And then,
Yeah,
same thing you're using when you're gator fishing. You don't want the gator or gar or whatever to break your
yeah,
line. So you toss it over there. That way, if it blows up, it doesn't melt the regular fishing line. And then
yeah,
you reel it back and you got it because it says reusable. Now,
yeah.
I don't know
Maybe it
if
blows
this
out the
is like,
bottom. It has to blow
yeah,
out the bottom.
and then you probably like reload it with a primer. Maybe that's what I'm.
Yeah,
So you probably have to buy reusable primers, but anyone that reloads knows primers pretty cheap. But because of tariffs, if you're buying Russian primers or anywhere non-American primers, which you likely were because they were cheaper,
yeah.
well, your primers are about to go up. We brought it back to tariffs. See, anyways, that's what they call a callback. Anyways, but I'm just saying that's how I would use it if you want to use it reusable. And now I would respect my neighbor's private property rights and I wouldn't throw it on their property. But let's say hypothetically you forgot to buy fireworks for the 4th of July. It's coming up in a couple months, right? But
What
you
let
got
me
a bunch of
let me give
primers
you a
and
hypothetical real
this
quick.
you could blow this thing up several times the neighbors be like, "Damn, what fireworks he got?"
No,
And then
let me
then
ask,
they'll probably say, "That guy's missing a couple fingers." You know what I mean?
let me ask you this: what if your neighbor beats you up and you're
Hey,
looking for some get back?
hey, so Rand Paul, or do you
I,
want to
I, I
add
didn't
this
say I
pocket?
didn't say any names. I'm just saying with this hypothetical. What if your neighbor
No,
beats you up?
we can joke. So Marcus said, and I don't know if you've already said it, but you said you'd be like, "All right, dog brought the heat on that Senate speech. I'm gonna give him some street cred back." But Marcus still ain't knowing if Rand's ready to throw down. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Now, Rand, you toss this through your neighbor's window, we'll call it even.
pretty much. I'm not even
Hey,
saying front porch. If he
yeah.
tosses it in the front porch or in the backyard where the dog is, and the dog tucked tail and ran away, and he filmed it with a drone, I'll be like, "That's some good get back." You know,
That's some G stuff right there.
yeah. I'm just saying that's my only problem with Rand. If my neighbor got me, we're gonna have round 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm just saying
Marcus said,
until one of us concedes that the hands are better than the other, it's not over after the first round. If we live next to each other, I can't look at you and be like, "This
yeah.
fool mop me up." I'm gonna go do some stuff and I'm gonna get some get back. That's my only thing.
Yeah.
That's my only. Other than that, I salute him. He's my boy. But
But
it's
he's
not
got
going down in the neighborhood
he
like
needs
that.
he needs some retribution. Look,
He needs to get back. Yeah.
how about this? What if Rand calls us up and is like, "Yo, Black Powder Podcast, I need y'all to come here. I need some intimidation tactics. I need you to show up. We're having a barbecue. I need all y'all showing up. We're gonna throw down and we're gonna piss the neighbor off. We're gonna make
Hey,
the neighbor do some dumb stuff.
all
Rand,
I'm
we're
saying,
here for you. We
all I'm
are
saying,
here for you."
if the neighbor got off first like he did last time, apparently, and Rand was getting mopped up, I'd pull him out and pretend like the neighbor hit me, so I had to get some in on him, get a couple licks
But
in on him, because
yeah,
all I need is 3. All I need is the
exactly.
right hook, the left jab, and the right hook again. And the average man is down. I'm bragging like that. The hands is there still. Not right
I,
now
I
because
I don't know. I don't know if Marcus lifts or not, but for those that don't know, Marcus is like 6'4". Is that right?
5.
6'5". Rand Paul's like 5'8". So you know what I mean.
I don't care how tall is Floyd Mayweather. He's not that tall either.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I'm saying.
also
Oh man,
Floyd
he-
Floyd dodged, so Floyd avoided those hits,
how
which Rand
how
Paul
long?
didn't do.
Okay, so how long has Rand Paul had to get in the right physical frame to get some get back? How
I don't
long?
know if he still
Yeah.
can't get tall, but I mean I get your point.
Oh,
Like
he can't get tall,
maybe
but he can get some skills.
well, he gets some skills. He can do some Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, be like Mighty Mouse out there. You know what I mean? Pop, pop,
Yeah,
pop, pop, pop.
I got you. I
But
got
I also think Rand Paul's missing like a half of a lung because of this attack.
you. Hey man, you just hold your elbow down. Hold your elbow down. Guard your rib cage, dude. Take it to the neck.
Uh,
I'm just
yeah,
saying, dude. If there's a will, there's a way.
yeah,
And
there is.
I honestly, I as a man, I can,
Look,
yeah, you know,
because of Rand Paul, I now can still carry when I cut grass. You know what I mean?
as you should, as you should. I mean, apparently there may be some people out there ready to deal you up and split your lip. So you have to be ready. And I'm just saying, if we're next door to each other and you give me a couple lumps, there's gonna be some get back. That's it. That's all. And Rand Paul has had enough time. I don't, because I'm saying this, I don't think there's a jury in America that would convict Rand Paul of battery if he went back like Debo and tell Craig this is round 2. You know, I don't. I simply don't think there is a jury in America that would convict Rand Paul about breaking a full jaw, like giving some
I don't
actual
know.
get back. I just don't. Would you convict
Maybe
him?
It depends. I don't know what the makeup of the area Rand Paul's would that be like the jury makeup where he lives. If it's all Democrats, he's getting
Really?
life in prison. You
I I
know
don't
what I
know.
mean? Like I don't know where. I think he lives
So
in
Democrats live in
Bowling.
better areas in Kentucky. I'm just saying. I
Well, I
I
think
don't know.
his neighbor. I think his neighbor was like a
Was he a
Democrat, but I'm pretty sure he lives in Bowling Green.
Well, that's a college town.
Uh,
Yeah, so
yeah.
college
So
town
there's a bunch of liberals
intellectuals
there.
are typically yeah.
That's
So
probably why he tried. And when I say liberal, I meant all right. There's progressives there because I'm not our classical liberal friends. That's where our philosophy founds from, or you know what I mean, like comes from. So
okay, I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask Tub, and I'm asking Michael, and I'm asking Obbins, and I'm gonna cut this out for all of you guys to do a 1.5 to 2.5 minute uh rant slash
hype
speech
video.
on the Libertarian Party and what you think needs to happen, because I already have my stuff written and I'm going to be publishing it within the next few days. I'm putting this out there for the world to see, and I may cut this out to put all y'all on blast, but I'm going to need that from you guys so more people can connect with us and what we truly believe in and what we're truly trying to push, because we're not trying to take anything or get anything from you. We're just trying to make the American people understand that there's another way, and that's the purpose of this podcast, and that's what we're bringing to the table. So, with that, Eric, do you have anything else to let the people know?
Nah,
Not
just
just
hold
hold
down here
down
in
here.
North
Nope.
Kakalaki. So
That's
appreciate
work.
all the fans. Keep following. Like, share, comment, do all the things.
I would appreciate it if everybody did share this, because we did talk about some important things and some stuff from a libertarian perspective. This is the only real libertarian podcast that has ever existed. And I will stand on that in my 6'5" frame, about 245. Got the hands. I could go a good 1-2 minutes these days because I'm getting kind of old. After that, it's either 40 cal or 45. So choose your battles wisely when you go out in the world, because some of us we have things to live for. And that's one principle of libertarianism. I'm not expressing any violence upon anybody. I just believe in the right to life, uh, conception to birth to death. I believe in the right to life. That's just my personal opinion. And my right to life includes the Second Amendment, as we believe on this podcast, because this podcast was originally founded upon the Second Amendment. And with that being said, I want to tell everybody as we close, as we always do, except for that one time Eric pointed out we didn't say this, and it's only happened once. Live free or
Or
die.
die.